Hi everyone, my name is Shiny Eric and today I'm going to be informing you guys on police brutality. It's something that's really big in social media and just something that I'd like to talk about. Many people arguing, are the police using excessive force or are they following their actual protocol? While some people may believe that police use excessive force and overstep his or her boundaries, others may believe that when a cop is following protocol, they must do everything necessary to protect their own lives. By defining the basics of this argument, providing examples, and showing statistics for both sides will show the difference between proof of persuasion or persuasion of the argument. The use of excessive physical force causing injury or harm by members of law enforcement in the exercise of their duties is defined as police brutality. Depending on the circumstances of each individual situation determines what type of force may be used. Many times this is confused with what was done and what should have been done. Consequently, sometimes law enforcement uses more force than necessary and causes injury to the individual. This may come across as intentional based off of a focus on what was done wrong. Although many people may disagree off of the circumstances. If a suspect is giving a police every reason to believe that they may have a weapon on them based off of being non-compliant, the officers will use necessary force to protect themselves from that weapon. This became a major focus when police brutality was classically depicted in the famous Rodney King beating in Los Angeles in the early 1990s. This incident brought a main focus on law enforcement and his or her actions during each incident to portray police using force that is unnecessary and was inflicted to punish the victim by causing as much pain as possible. More recently, Michael Brown had a major focus in the media depicting police brutality. From 1991, Rodney King, to 2015, Michael Brown, police brutality has been handled in many different ways, such as police militarization, riots, soldering, and so on. Being able to differentiate between police brutality and protocol can give an individual a better understanding of what needs to be done to hold those accountable who have indeed used excessive force. Knowing what is acceptable can help reform the acceptance of law enforcement's actions and hold to consequences for what is not. There have been many cases that can be portrayed as brutal and others that show pure cause of following protocol. Depending on who is proposing the evidence of the case will determine whether or not the audience is persuaded to believe that the incident was brutal or not. The case of Najee Rivera and officers Kevin Robinson and Sean McKnight in 2013 is a perfect example of police officers not following protocol and using unnecessary violent force. Najee Rivera was arrested on May 29, 2013 for running a stop sign on his scooter and running when pulled over. The next day, Rivera's girlfriend came to the police department and saw all the damage that the police have done to him. Rivera suffered a broken face that had to be stitched and stapled, fractured orbital bone, and an eye swollen shut. The officers were both charged with aggravated assault. The police stated that they tried to stop Rivera from running a stop sign when they turned on their sirens, and then Rivera fled. When they caught up to Rivera, he had fallen off the scooter, thrown one of the officers against a wall, and threw 3 elbows. Later, though, a surveillance tape showed that almost the entire statement that the officers had told was false. The video showed that the officers pulled Rivera over, and Rivera did run after he saw both officers with batons in hand. The officers pursued Rivera, knocked him from his scooter, and then began to hit Rivera with batons and fists. The rest of the video shows Rivera moving around on the floor screaming, but never resisting his arrest. Additional charges were filed against the police officers, and Rivera received a settlement of $200,000. According to the statutory standard of using deadly physical force, the law authorizes law enforcement officers to use deadly physical force only when they reasonably believe it is necessary to defend themselves or a third person from the use of imminent use of deadly physical force. In Palestine, Texas, a man was shot and killed by police. The man's name was James Bushy, who was being questioned for stealing beer from a store. While being escorted by the police, Bushy pulled out a black BB gun that looked like a real 9mm handgun and was shot. In this event, the police were clearly within their rights to use force. For many of these cases, people are recording the events and uploading them onto the internet for everyone else to see. The news programs are also using uploaded videos to use for their TV programs and publicity. The problem with this is you don't always have the whole story on video. Being able to differentiate between police brutality and protocol will help others to make a better judgment of what police are doing is right or wrong. The example of police using unnecessary force is very unfortunate, but at least they were later charged. The example of police following protocol shows that sometimes police have to take extreme actions to protect their own lives. Before jumping to conclusions, one must know all facts. Many of times we assume that police are too brutal, but many of the times they're actually following the protocol that they were taught.